Hello, welcome to Just Make Game. My name is Michael and making video games is really, really, really fun. So I came to a realization when putting this video together that when people have been asking me over the last 3 or 4 months, so how long till your game comes out? My go-to answer has been, yeah, just about halfway done. Now, it seems like I've been sitting at this halfway point for quite a long time now. Now, this happens with lots of games, and a lot of this comes down to what we call feature creep. Now, for those that don't know, feature creep is the ongoing addition of features and expansion to the scope of a game. Now, this is a bad thing for quite a few reasons. So not only can it perpetually extend your development time into infinity because the number of features you're adding keeps up with the number of features that you're completing and you never actually complete the game, but it can also result in an overcomplicated design for the game. Now, I'm 100% aware of the existence of feature creep, and I've been susceptible to it in the past, but it has still popped up to a certain extent. But the good news is that I've been actively looking at features that I've been looking to implement lately, been analysing those critically as to whether or not those features are obtainable, and if they support the design of the game that I'm going for. Now, to this end, a bunch of useless crap has been cut this month, and I'm actually really, really happy that I've managed to jump on some of this earlier rather than later. And I'm impressed because I'm managing to keep the design of the game really tight down to what makes it interesting, the core design. But anyway, now onto what I've done as opposed to what I've gotten rid of this month. One of the tasks I've been putting off for quite a while is completing the remainder of the player's animations and finalising the non-combat movement for the player. So I've gone ahead and I've finished that this month. The animations are finished. They're not in the engine yet, but soon the player can actually move around in more directions than just heading to the right and actually explore the levels. The player now has just over 500 frames of animation, which has gone up from 300 or so last month. And unless I need specific animations further down the track for something that I want to add or something I've forgotten, then he's complete. Now, because animations are just so much fun, and that's the point of development I'm at for Bannerman, I have also rotoscoped up another enemy. This time around, it's an archer. Now, he is the first enemy you come across that actually has a ranged attack, and he's got a couple of other cool things that he can do that I should probably talk about. So the archer is the first enemy you encounter that has an unblockable primary attack. You can't block arrows with your sword, you just can't do it, that's silly, and you need to use your dodge move to avoid the arrows and to get closer to him. When you get within a certain range of him, he can do one of three things. So the first thing he can do is he can draw his sword and he can go at you in melee. He's not particularly good at this, but he can do damage to you, especially if you're not ready for him to do this. He can also drop his bow and leg it, make a run for it, or he can surrender to the player. Now you'll notice one of the things he can't do is the typical video game thing where they fire arrows at you point blank. I've always found that so annoying, so yes, he doesn't do that. He drops the bow when you get within a certain range. Due to his nature as a ranged attacker, the archer is both found on his own and also in conjunction with other enemies where he stands back from the fight and lobs arrows in at you, which is also a first for the enemies so far. Now, a really big thing that has been looming over me for far too long is the game's script. So I've had the script complete since the second or third month into production, but it's never been totally fleshed out to the point where I can just copy-paste from the script to the game, or where I can just print it out and give it to voice actors knowing that it's got everything I want in it. It's always needed more fleshing out, especially the dialogue, and I'm finally getting around to doing that. So I'm not much of a writer, it's really not a skill that I have, and I'm 100% aware of this. So to that end, my partner Hayley, who has been appearing pretty much just in the background of these videos so far, is helping me work through the script and get it to the point where it can be given to voice actors, and elements of it can be copy-pasted into the game systems, and that's great because just like the additional player animations, I've been putting this off as long as I can. I've also been putting a bit of work into tiny little effects which enhance the overall look and feel of the game. These range from little elements of screen shake when getting hit, to dust being kicked up when the player or enemies move, through to blood and spark effects when you come into contact with an enemy or his block. This is similar to the cloud layer, the fog, the bugs, the birds that I've been adding to previous levels you would have seen in earlier episodes. These are all just tiny little things that go a long way to enhancing a game's feel. And they're a big part of what makes a game feel right or wrong when you're playing it. In additionally above, I've also been making code changes which surround the player's movement and the handling of player inputs. Until this point, the player and enemy characters have all moved with a linear vector appropriate to their animation frames. Now, this has been fine for testing, basic testing, and fleshing it all out, but it's not at all representative of how I want the player to feel and the combat to feel for the final product. So now characters have a slight acceleration and deceleration on movement, and a little touch of inertia, and thanks to some of the new animations, the player can now respond on screen to our inputs where they previously couldn't. A good example of that is when moving, the player has traditionally been locked out of further inputs until his movement command is complete. This can lead to situations where you're moving forward but you want to attack and the player doesn't do it basically until that movement cycle is done. Now this is deliberate because this is the sort of slow deliberate combat that I'm going for, more methodical combat where it's all about spacing and timing. But it doesn't feel right to the player to press a button and to have it reflected on screen as doing nothing. It makes the game feel sloppy and unresponsive, as you often hear a lot of games are unresponsive. It's normally because it doesn't communicate to the player properly the intentions of the gameplay and how it works. So now the player will still complete his movement before actually attacking, but the animation reflects this as while the player is moving, he now begins to wind up his attack. Now this gives you a nice visual indicator as to what's going on. You can see the game is going, okay, you're moving forward, oh you want to attack now, that's good, I'm going to try attacking, and it still doesn't play out any differently to how it did before, but it lets you know what's happening. So if you do get hit in between here, when you're moving in and swinging, and I don't know, you get hit with a spear, you know now that I was trying to attack but it didn't quite get there in time, whereas before you went, this was unresponsive, it didn't do what I told it to, I'm pressing buttons, nothing's happening, that sort of thing. This is a big difference as to how a player perceives your control responsiveness and how good your control scheme is. And yeah, it's good, it's working well. So outside of this work on the game itself, I've also been doing a bit of work sort of still within the game but outside the game. So I've been doing things like I've got a logo for the game that I did up. I chucked up a website specifically for Bannerman in anticipation of putting a trailer together and putting Bannerman up on Greenlight, which should be next month, maybe. Well, that wraps everything up for this month. I hope you're all well. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas, because I will see you after Christmas for the next update. Catch you next time. See ya. Extend. Fuck. Got the pop filter. Pop! Idiot. Where is it?